Good morning. Let me double check so I'm not blowing you out here. How are we doing on volume? We doing okay? Anybody too loud? Raise your hand. We're doing okay? All right, good deal. First of all, how many of you, my friends over here at this table said, I said, how'd y'all do last night? They said we were recuperating from Friday night. So how many of you are enjoying your time in South Carolina and Myrtle Beach?
Oh yeah.
Good. All right, if y'all will indulge me for just a second, and Alan mentioned something that I just want to take advantage of, if y'all don't mind. How many of you are from, well, let me ask it a different way. How many North Carolina basketball fans do we have? Okay, do we have any Duke fans? Got a couple of you, okay. Those of you who are not from this region of the country, let me tell you right now, the number one, and some of y'all going to give me arguments from Michigan and some of you guys, but the number one college rivalry, hands down, is North Carolina Duke basketball. So tonight, if any of you are watching it and you don't have loyalties already lined up, pull for the Tar Heels. Now, I will tell you this. I have an undergraduate degree from North Carolina and I have a graduate degree from Duke. I have no problem understanding where my loyalties lie. I have a very large ram's head tattoo on this shoulder right here. So I'm fine on that. So if you don't have loyalties, just pull for North Carolina. But be sure and watch this thing because for my money, it is exactly the spirit of what college basketball is supposed to be about. So I hope y'all have fun down here watching that. Now, let me jump in our time here. I've got about 90 minutes to talk about the concept of change. But if you'll indulge, I want to start off in a way that maybe you didn't expect. St. Peter walks out to the pearly gates and there are all these souls waiting to get into heaven. And he says, listen, heaven is getting so full that we've had to change the criteria of what gets you into heaven. He said the new criteria is the drama of your death. He said, however dramatic your death is, that's the more likely it'll get you into heaven. So he asked the first guy, how did you die? First guy said, I live on the 9th floor of an apartment building in Chicago. And he said, I was kind of worried how solid my marriage was. So he said, I figured I'd show up early one day and just kind of see if everything was okay. He said, about 3:30 yesterday afternoon, I came on in the house. And he said, my wife was sitting on the couch wondering why I was home so early. He said, I was walking through the apartment looking, nobody there. He said, I guess my mind just got a little squirrely on me on this, you know. He said, I went out to the balcony to take a deep breath and clear my head. He said, I was looking out in the distance. He said, I looked down, and there he was. He said, there are these fingers hanging on the ledge. He said, I went over to the railing and looked, and sure enough, there's some guy hanging on the ledge. Said, okay, I can fix this. So he said, I went in the apartment, got my hammer, came back, started whacking his fingers with the hammer. Said he let go, said he fell 9 stories, but he fell into a bunch of bushes down at the bottom of the building. Said, I knew he was still alive because I could see his arms and legs moving. Said, I went in our kitchen and got the refrigerator, and I drug our refrigerator out to the balcony. Said, I got it up on the railing, flipped it over. Said it fell 9 floors, hit him, killed him. But he said the strain of picking up that refrigerator, he said, I had a heart attack and died. Now see, men never laugh at that. There's always a woman who thinks that's funny. So St. Peter said, man, I said, that's a pretty dramatic death. So he asked the second guy, how did you die? Second guy said, I live on the 10th floor of an apartment building in Chicago. And he said, every afternoon, about the middle of the afternoon, I run on a treadmill for exercise out on my balcony. He said, yesterday afternoon, I was out there running. And he said, this pigeon flew real close to the balcony and distracted me. He said, I misstepped, tripped, and fell over the railing. He said, but just through the grace of good luck, I caught myself on the ledge of the apartment below. He said, and I thought, I cannot believe. He said, but then some guy came out and started whacking my fingers with a hammer. He said, I had to let go. Said, I fell 9 floors, but I fell into a bunch of bushes down at the bottom of the building. Said, I'm laying there thinking, man, I have survived a 9-story fall. But I look up, and this guy's flipping a refrigerator over the railing, hit me, kill me. St. Peter said, man, he said, that's a pretty dramatic death. So he asked the third guy, how did you die? Third guy said, okay, picture this. He said, I'm hiding in a refrigerator. Happy birthday. In an apartment in Chicago. Now, one of the things I love, and that's my brand new joke. Please go forth and tell it to anybody you want to. But one of the things I like about that joke is if you've ever been in a good English class or you've run into a good preacher somewhere, they talked about the concept of close reading. And they'll talk about taking a Bible verse or a quote or a sentence or even a whole book and closely read it and ask yourself, what do they really mean? What's the author really talking about? Well, the cool thing about that joke is you can closely read that joke. Help me out here. The first guy, the guy who came home early, what was his basic mistake?
He didn't check the refrigerator.
Now see, that's the guy's answer. That's the guy's answer right there. What was his basic mistake? He made an assumption, didn't he? In times of change, if you make assumptions about how things are going to go, if you make assumptions about people, very often if you make assumptions about yourself, sooner or later you're going to be wrong. I mean, it's going to jump up and bite you. I mean, I'm not going to assault anybody's tender sensibilities, but everybody knows what happens when you assume something, right? Okay, second guy on the treadmill. Pigeon flies by. What happened to him? He got distracted. One of the things in times of change that happens is so much stuff is going on that maybe you hadn't counted on. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about the neurological issues that you've got to think about. What goes on in your brain during times of change. And it's really easy to get distracted. You've got to kind of keep in mind what your focus might be, what your major goals are, so that those things pull you through a time of change. The third guy, the guy in the refrigerator, what was his basic mistake? Say it again. Bad vision. Anybody? He was the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, let me give you two things to think about this. One of the difficult issues in life is that in times of change, whether it's in your professional life or in your personal life, there are going to be situations when some people are just the wrong people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Could be you, could be some of the people who work for you. Okay, no hard feelings, but wrong people, wrong place, wrong time. The other issue, though, is this. I think things happen for a reason. There's a reason that we have all ended up in this room down here in Myrtle Beach for about 90 minutes with me standing up here talking. I think right now, for you, relative to change, I'm the right person in the right place at the right time. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to hang with me for a little bit less than 90 minutes, and let me offer you some suggestions that can get you through change, both personally and professionally. Now, there's some handouts on your table, and there's some pens over there. So if you'll grab a handout and kind of start easing along with me. Last spring about this time, I got a call from some folks at Novartis Pharmaceuticals. Novartis makes birth control pills and asthma medicine and some other things. And they asked me to create a program on change. And so I put together what I thought was a pretty good program. So about 48 hours before I was supposed to fly to New York to do the first program, I was on a conference call with some of these folks. And one of the people on the conference call, at the very end of the call, had a toss-off comment. And I'm willing to bet some of y'all have had this at times in your life. You're talking to somebody and they just toss out this comment that at the time doesn't seem to mean anything, and then later it means everything. And this guy at the end of the conversation said, oh, by the way, he said, if you can help us figure out how to deal with repetitive change, that constant stuff that's always, he said, you know, right about the time you're about to get your hands around this thing that's changed, here comes something else at you. He said, if you can help us figure out a way to deal with that, that'd be a good thing. Well, as soon as I hung up, I thought, what the heck, repetitive change, that sounds like an interesting phrase. So I just Googled it. Well, there's a whole body of knowledge about repetitive change. And it's thought of as RCS. It's called Repetitive Change Syndrome. There's a guy named Eric Abramson who teaches at MIT in Columbia, and he's created a whole body of knowledge about this. Now, here's what he's found out. He's found out that in times of great change, there are 3 symptoms of this RCS. First is initiative overload. So many people are trying to create so many new things that folks are just overwhelmed. It's almost like you got too much going on too often. Second is change-related chaos. The change gets so great that people literally start getting distracted and they start forgetting what the major focus in their business or in their life would be. It's almost like it's too much, too loud. And then the third is employee burnout. Now let me slow down right here. Everybody in this room knows somebody who will talk about the fact, oh, I'm just burned out. I'm just burned out. Well, they're talking about being burned out and they hadn't even flamed up yet. So I'm going to suggest to you there are some folks that this employee burnout is just too much for too long. In the early 90s, business schools talked about destructive change and the fact that you're supposed to kind of tear things up in your business to change things. Well, they oversold it. And a lot of companies have changed too much and it hurt them, not helped them. But if you start seeing these three things in your organization, you really need to step back and think about some of the stuff we're going to be talking about this morning. So let's talk about the basics. On your outline, if you will, come on down to where it says open. I mentioned yesterday that I'm not one of these presenters who's going to kind of build up, and then ta-da, give you the deal at the end. I'm going to give you the deal right up front. If you don't go get anything else other than the two things I'm going to give you right now, you need to get these two things. First, you need to ask yourself, do you believe that life is a gift, or do you believe that it is an entitlement? Do you believe it's a gift or an entitlement? If you believe that life is a gift, then every day's a holiday, every meal's a banquet. Any type of change that comes along is just another way for you to experience life, another way for you to learn lessons, another way for you to enjoy what's going on, if you believe life is a gift. If you believe that life is an entitlement, then every little change is somebody spitting in your Kool-Aid. So one of the things I'm going to suggest that you do is look at yourself first. Do you see life as a gift, or do you see it as an entitlement? And then look at some of the folks who work for you. What do they see it as? If you've got some people who believe life is an entitlement, then you know that you got to kind of lay some foundation before you go in there and start changing things for them. Second thing that you really got to get is this. All the research about change, all the research about moving through difficult times comes down to this. Look for solutions, not problems. Look for solutions, not problems. If you can get your organization to be more solution-oriented than problem-oriented, then that creates a positive feeling. Now, I'm not going to kind of get out there with talking about the law of attraction and some of that sort of stuff, but if people have positive thoughts, it seems that more positive stuff comes to them. It almost acts like a magnet. So the more you can create solutions instead of looking for problems, better off you're going to be. A lot of this has to do with how you look at change. Now, this point number 2 down here, what's your change history? What's your change history? I need for you to do me a favor, if you will. Somewhere on your outline, I need for you to create a little graph. And it won't take you but just a second. I need the graph to look like this. Just draw one line straight down and another line horizontal. Simple graph. In the lower left-hand corner, I want you to put 06. 06. And at the very end of that horizontal line, put 11. I want you to take just about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I want you to graph the last 5 years in your life relative to change. Now, that vertical axis is amount of change. And it can be good change. If you've had children, that's a good change. But the vertical axis is amount of change, horizontal axis is time. Just graph how much change has happened in your life over the last 5 years. Take just a second and do that. How many of you have a graph that kind of looks like the Andes Mountains? How many of you have a jet taking off? Yeah, I run into that a lot. Let me ask you all this. How are some of the ways you've dealt with those changes? Help me out. Opportunity? Tell me what you're thinking about opportunity.
Every change, every problem, you look at it as an opportunity.
Okay.
You'll be a whole lot better off instead of
That's along that thing of solutions versus problem. He was saying, he said, every time you see a change, look for the opportunity in that change. Is that the gist? Okay. What else have you done? How have you dealt with change?
Be positive and overcome.
Be positive and overcome. Okay. Anything else? How else have you dealt with it? Say again. That was the word I was looking for. I hear that word a lot. Embrace the change. Now, let me ask you this, because that is the wonderful standard phrase you hear a lot. Can you tell me a practical way that you use to embrace the change?
Well, my change has been great. I got married, I got a kid coming. It's been wonderful.
Okay. How long have you been married? 3 years? Good deal. Anybody in here been married over 30? Talk to him before he leaves. I'm happy for you. Way to go, man. Way to go. All right. All I'm suggesting that you think about is this. Different people approach change in different ways. If you run into people who approach change in a positive way, get close to those folks and ask them how they did it. because that's lessons you can learn. One of the things I believe is a true advantage of the type of get-together that y'all are having is that you get together with your peers and it gives you a chance to ask people, how have you overcome certain challenges? A lot of folks don't have these opportunities. You've got an opportunity like this, take advantage of it. This next point down here, a lot of times when people are addressing change, I think they're basically off to see the wizard. Off to see the wizard. They hope that there's going to be some kind of magical something that's going to change things. How many of you have ever watched The Wizard of Oz? Don't even talk to me about those flying monkeys. I'm 59 years old. I still can't watch the movie when the flying monkeys come on. But a lot of people are just off to see the wizard. Now, I think it comes down to, if you look at changes that happen in your life, they can affect your work. And then changes that happen at work can affect your life. Now, on its most basic level, let's talk about what you've got that you can use to kind of deal with these changes. Let's talk about the resources you have. You only have 5 resources. Whether you're running your personal life or your work life, you only have 5. The first resource is time. Now, you remember I said yesterday, time is the only resource where everybody starts out the same. Everybody starts out with 10,080 minutes a week. Now, let me ask this. Please raise your hand. How many of you are married? How many of you have children? How many of you have grandchildren? You ever notice hands go up faster for grandchildren than they do for children? I see it everywhere I go. It's like, yeah, I got grandchildren. I just can't figure out how to came from those children I got. I see it everywhere I go. How many of you have hobbies, things you do for fun? Okay. Let me ask this in a different way. How many of you have some sort of positive activity in your life? When you engage in that activity, it takes you up and away from the cares of the day. Raise your hand. More hands went up. That word hobby is not a frivolous thing. If you do not have something that is positive, that takes you up and away from the cares of the day, then very often the stresses that are created by change tend to wear you down and crush you. Have something you can use to step away from it. Now here's a killer. How many of you are working at least 40 hours a week? That's what I thought. Here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about what I'm going to call the 2% solution. So on your notes, if you'll just put 2%. A buddy of mine owns a gourmet peanut company, and if you get a gift basket at the holidays, you may get Maxwell's gourmet peanuts in that basket. Max knows a peanut broker, and he said, Mike, this guy's made so much money, it is unbelievable. But he said, this guy's just not the brightest bulb in the hall. He said, the guy's 58, 59 years old now. But said when he was 17, 18 years old and he took SATs, college board exams, he came back telling everybody he made 968 on college boards, which is a reasonably respectable score. Most of the athletes in the ACC make between 850 and 1,000 on college boards. But when they started talking to him, they found out what he was doing is he was adding up the math and the verbal and the test date. And they said the test date was 468, so how bright can this guy be? They give you like 400 points for signing your name. Y'all think I'm joking. If you go to Carter Finley Stadium for NC State University and go to the concession stand to buy peanuts, you'll buy peanuts made by this guy's company. So Max went to him and said, what's the secret of your success? How have you done so well? How have you made so much money? He said 2%. He said, I buy a pound of peanuts for $1 and I sell them for $2. He said that 2% right there is what I'm making all my money on. Now, let me tell you up front, if you ain't getting that joke, you got more problems than I can help you with. I will say this, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I've told that joke some places in North and South Carolina, and nobody laughed. But here's what I want you to think about. 2% of a 40-hour work week is only 45 minutes. If you will give me 45 minutes in your week, not only can I help you move through times of change, I can help you be a better manager. I can even help you be a better spouse. Let me show you how. The average American worker works 5 days a week. 5 into 45, all I'm asking you for is 9 minutes a day. Just give me 9 minutes a day. That's all I'm asking. Now I'm going to take that 9 and I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to say 4.5 and 4.5. At the end of your work day, I need you to take 4.5 minutes and I need you to look ahead at the next day and do a to-do list. Now you remember yesterday, I asked for a show of hands on this and I'm going to ask for it again this morning. Please raise your hands if you do a to-do list on a regular basis. Yes, and you remember I said that your life gets easier if you encourage the people you manage to do a to-do list. During times of change, and I know this is going to sound so simplistic, during times of change, things change. And there are new things that you need to be doing. New things that take you to that new reality that take you to change. The best way to make sure that you get those new things done is to remind yourself. And a to-do list is the best way to do that. So all I'm asking you to do is 4.5 minutes. 4.5 minutes at the end of the day, make sure you do a to-do list. And write down those things that are new that you need to be doing. The next morning, I need you to take 4.5 minutes to look over that list. Now let me give you a different spin. And some of y'all, this is really going to click with you. I need you to take that 4.5 minutes looking back over the list to make sure you're focused on those new things you need to do. And I need for you to do it either at home before you leave for work or in your car truck in the parking lot. A lot of y'all have jobs in which all you've got to do is walk in the front door and it's on. And you're putting out fires and greasing squeaky wheels from the minute you hit the door. And if your attitude is, I'll look over my list first chance I get, you may not get that chance till lunchtime. So all I'm asking for is 9 minutes a day. That's all. Now let me make you a promise. If you'll do what I'm asking, it won't turn you into one of those people who comes into work every day like, hey, how you doing? Good morning. Isn't it just a beautiful day? Do any of you work with people like that? I see people like that. I think that's better living through chemistry. I think they're sucking up more than a couple of cups of coffee and a couple of sun drops on the way to work if they can come in like that. It reminds me of the movie The Lion King. How many of you seen The Lion King? Put your hands down. How many of you seen it more than once? Yeah. If I have to hear that bird sing that song one more time, it will be an item on the 6 o'clock news. But there's a scene in the movie where Mufasa, the daddy lion, and Simba, the baby lion, are walking through this meadow. And Simba looks up at his daddy and he says, you know, Daddy, you're always so brave. And Mufasa says, son, I'm not always brave. I'm just brave when I have to be. If you want to move through times of change in a positive way, you don't have to be on all the time. What you got to do is figure out 3 things. When are the times, who are the people, and what are the situations that I need to step up and deal with so that things change? Good morning. How you doing? We're glad you made it. Have a seat. There's outlines right there in the middle of the table. Just get back from 2001. Second resource. Did you bring us a beer? Second resource is energy. Please raise your hand if you're a morning person. Got a bunch of you. You know, some mornings when you wake up early, some mornings look brand new, don't they? Some mornings even smell new when you get up and out early. I get around you morning people and I think, what is the waiting period on a handgun? I am not a morning person at all. And y'all are in the kitchen at 5:30 in the morning banging around and then yelling down the hall. I didn't wake y'all up, did I? And I'm thinking, what the hell, are we farmers or something? Y'all are up this early. To me, there are no numbers on the clock between 2 a.m. and 9 a.m. Listen, what we're talking about here is how your energy flows during your day. It's called circadian rhythms. Don't worry about that phrase. The slang term is prime time. When is your prime time? Times of change burn up energy faster, both mentally and physically. One of the things I'm going to suggest is you need to start asking yourself, when did your energy go up and when does it drop off? When it drops off, this is called an energy trough. And you need to, you morning people, be very careful about meetings and telephone calls you have after 3:30 in the afternoon. It's easy to get fatigued, irritated, and pop off to somebody like afternoon, evening people. Be very careful about those 7 o'clock meetings, things like that. Now, I want to touch on one other thing about energy, and I'm going to be real careful about this because I don't want to get sued. A friend of mine is a career health educator. So I went to her and I said, how do I talk about this other energy issue and not get sued? Here's what she told me to tell you, and it's got body language that goes with it. If you will look around the room, what we have is a wonderfully dominant male group. That means that lovely ladies in our group form the minority this morning. What that also means is that a lot of the people in that minority on a regular basis experience some cyclical energy issues. Now, this is the point at which Pamela's looking over here and going, we didn't buy into this, did we? Now, during those energy cycles, your communication skills, your physical skills, your emotional skills, your patience, that would be the body language part, is probably not what you would like for it to be. Please understand that for those of us who do not experience cycles like that, we sure enough know when they come around for the rest of you. Now, I'm getting ready to ask 2 questions, the 2 most fun questions I ever get asked because I am an equal opportunity insulter. Those of you in the minority, do you believe that those of us in the majority have cycles too? Okay. All right, now the next question is the most fun question I've ever had that I get to ask, and I've had some very blunt answers to this question. We're all adults. Please feel free to be as open as you need to be. What do you think causes energy cycles in males? Say again? Food, I've got a bunch of buddies who believe that a Snickers and a cup of coffee is a breakfast of champions. Yeah. What else? Testosterone. Women are on 28-day cycles. We're on 6-week cycles. Every 6 weeks, our testosterone levels jump. Our voices are louder and deeper. We are physically stronger. It's holdover from caveman days. Yeah. Anything else? See, now somebody always laughs at that. It's 50,000 years ago and we're a village. Everybody's starving. Pat comes to one of us and says, listen, everybody's starving, y'all go get some food. So me and Eddie and a couple other guys get some sharp sticks and go out and get something and bring it back. Everybody eats it, everybody's full. Well, it's about 6 weeks from starving to full, starving to full, starving to full. So at 6 weeks, everybody's starving again, and Pat comes back and says, Mike, we didn't mean just to get one thing. Go get some more. So we have, as males, we have internalized that. So every 6 weeks, our testosterone's jump. It's almost like we're getting ready to go hunting. I have had a whole range of issues of why people have explained males have cycles too. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is not just a female phenomenon. There was some great research that was done during the first Gulf War, and they found out that in a lot of military units, there'll be one guy who's thought of as the alpha dog, and everybody's energy level will sync up with him, and it matches up to an issue called the dormitory effect. Studies in women's dormitories show that women coming into the dormitory in the first of the fall, all the cycles are different. It takes about 90 days. People start cycling together. Now, why is this important for a program like this? Let me tell you. There was a cool study that was done at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and they found that if you look at when sick days are taken in large organizations, especially female-dominated organizations, they found that there's a 7 to 10 day window of time when most of the sick days are taken. And it coincides with this issue of cycling. And during that 7 to 10 days, there are more mistakes made in office settings, in manufacturing settings, more injuries occur, and people are less civil to each other. When change happens and stress levels go up, anything like this that affects your physical energy level makes the change worse. Now, there are 4 things you can do to kind of start evening people out a little bit. One is push people to drink more water. The more hydrated they stay, the more people's energy levels stay on an even keel. Second, encourage people to exercise. You don't have to have them out in the parking lot running sprints, but if you can institute a 5-minute walking program, it evens people's energy levels out. Third, I think food used as a mood-altering drug is okay. Snickers and Krispy Kreme donuts cures a lot of ills. And then finally is humor. If you can bring appropriate humor into your organization, it calms people down a little bit. Nobody talks about what I've just talked about in a programs about change. I go to enough of them. Nobody talks about this stuff. This issue of energy is absolutely crucial. And let me give you one sentence. There's a book that came out 5 years ago. Don't even write down the name of the book. I got the one sentence for you. The book is called Full Engagement. It looks at how energy flows through your day. There's one sentence that says energy is the fundamental currency for high performance. Energy is the fundamental currency for high performance. If you cannot keep a reasonable energy level, you cannot perform at the level that you want to, especially in times of change. Third resource is the one that's going to jump up and bite you. Third resource is ego. Now, this is not like pride like you hear about in church. What I'm talking about is the psychological definition of ego, and that is who you see yourself as being, who you hold yourself out and others as. I think who we are every day, we create ourselves every day with a series of habits that we get into. Now let me show you what I'm talking about and you'll get the whole concept pretty quickly. Look around and look at the different hairstyles in this room. We got a wide range of hairstyles in here, don't we? You have the hairstyle you have for one of 3 reasons. 1 is genetics, 2 is ease of care, and 3 is because you think it makes you look good. Those are the 3 reasons you have the hairstyle you have. Now my question is this, wouldn't we all be better off if we had this gentleman's hairstyle back here? Yeah. Let me tell you something. I've buzzed my head. It's one of the most freeing experiences you'll ever have. It takes about 2 minutes to take a shower, dry your hair with a paper towel. You don't ever have a bad hair day. But this hair thing is a habit we get into. Your habits and how you use those habits as you go through times of change is either going to make the change easier or harder. Let me give you, how many of y'all woke up at home today? Ellis is the only one. Got one person. Everybody woke up somewhere different. How many of you have a rhythm at home? When you get up at home, how many of you have a rhythm? A series of habits you go through to get up, get ready, and get out in the morning. How many of you drink coffee in the morning? How many of you set the coffee up at night so that all you got to do is put the coffee? Yeah, all that's a habit. Now, if you start changing that habits, it gets stressful, doesn't it? All I'm going to ask you to think about is this. In times of change, think about the word. When things change, it gets more stressful for you. I'm going to show you something you'll find intriguing, I hope. I want you to do a little bit of artwork for me. It won't take you but a second. I want everybody somewhere on your notes, I want you to draw a boom box. Now, it can look like anything you want it to look like, but it's got to have a CD player and speakers. So if you will, just draw a boom box with a CD player and speakers. Once you get your boombox drawn, if you will, I want you to draw 4 CDs. Draw 4 CDs and title the first one Morning. Not like sadness, but like AM, M-O-R-N-I-N-G. So draw 4 CDs, title the first one Morning. I appreciate y'all indulging me on this activity because you'll find in a second it's a wonderful self-revelatory type of exercise, but I do have to ask you a quick question. Whenever I ask people to draw the CDs, some people draw the CDs themselves, other people draw the cases. If you do the cases, raise your hand. Yeah, usually about 10% of any group will draw the cases. I don't have a clue why y'all do it. Not one. Okay, a lot of y'all are sitting near people you know, so this is the point at which you may want to start covering up what you're getting ready to write, especially if you're sitting near your spouse. I want you to title the other 3 CDs after people, and this could be specific individuals, people or situations that cause you stress. Title, and please feel free to draw more CDs. Title the CDs after people or situations that cause you stress. Please draw more 4 CDs if you want to. And I always thought that if you had the same name on more than 1 CDs, it'd be like a greatest hits. All right, everybody got some? All right, I'm getting ready to tell you what for me is one of the more profound thoughts I've ever heard. 95% of what we do every day, we do based on second nature. We don't even think about doing it, we just do it. Now think about that. It's like we've got these boom boxes in our heads, and what we do 95% of the time is we pick up a CD, plug it in, and play it. Pick it up, plug it in, and play it. We rarely look at the CD and say, is this helping me or hurting me? We just pick it up, plug it in, and play it. Times of change are like that. We just keep doing kind of the same things we were doing. Look at the one you titled Morning. Remember what I said. Everybody in this room has got some rhythm, habits you do. When you get up in the morning, you just pick that CD up and plug it in. But here's the thing. Here's how tightly this stuff has you. Look at the other 3 CDs. If you wrote a person's name down on one of those CDs, I'm willing to bet that for some of you, all you've got to do is hear that person's voice. And it sounds like fingernails on a blackboard now, doesn't it? You know what my favorite one is? Getting up and getting out in the morning. You get up on a day like today, it is just gorgeous. You get ready, looking, thinking, no, I don't look too bad here today. You're driving to work, song on the radio, and you're thinking, yeah. I remember where I was first time I heard that song. I heard Al Green singing Still in Love with You the other morning. Thought I was going to have to pull over for a few minutes on the side of the road. But you're driving to work, you pull in the parking lot, and there's their car. And you're thinking another night the family wasn't smart enough to smother them with a pillow. Well, just think about the fact you have had that habit of how they made you feel is so ingrained. All you got to do is see that inanimate object, their vehicle, and all of a sudden that stuff comes rushing back. It's a habit. So let me tell you this. The 2 most important words related to ego are can versus will. Can versus will. What can you do versus what will you do? In times of change, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. Can versus will. You're all smart people. You can do some of the things you need to do to move positively through change. My question is, will you do it? The dollar symbol on there, what I mean by that dollar symbol in resources is simply investing in yourselves. Investing in yourself. You remember Willie Stewart yesterday talked about lifelong learning. Let me tell you something that is, I believe, to be startling. 95% of Americans, after they get out of high school or college, never read a whole book the rest of their lives. Now, right now, I'm in the process of kind of reading through a book by Paul Johnson, the English historian, called A History of the American People. And our founding fathers understood at the very start that you had to have an educated populace to continue democracy and liberty. And we're getting dumber. So invest in yourselves. One of the best ways to move through change is to learn more. And then the final resource that's not on your outline is the one that worries me the most for you, because this is the resource I promise you that most people rely on to move through not just change but to move through their lives. And it's simple, flat out luck. Luck is a wonderful acronym, and it means laboring under correct knowledge. Laboring under correct knowledge. I believe that one of the reasons Pamela asked me to come visit with y'all is she looks at your industry, she looked at your association, she looked at the dramatic changes that y'all are facing, and she did not want to rely on luck to give you some information that would help you move through these times and do it in a positive way. Now, luck is based on that correct knowledge, and that's based on 3 specific areas. One is skills. Correct knowledge in terms of skills. Continuing to train yourself and your people to deal with change. Second area of correct knowledge is THEM, them, other people. The more you understand other people, the more effective you'll be in managing them and managing your relationships with them. But the third one is the killer. And the third one is you knowing you. You knowing you. How do you deal with change? You remember I told you yesterday that really only 3 to 5 things out of a session like this, and if you get those 3 to 5 things, kind of got the whole deal. One of them is this. One of the reasons I asked you a minute ago, how have you dealt with change, is I wanted to see if you had a plan. Everybody needs a simple plan that helps them address and move through times of change. In 1993, my dad was sitting at the dining room table in Lumberton, North Carolina, about 80 miles northwest of where we are right now. And he had, anybody here from Robeson County? Anybody know anything about Robeson County? I come from a county where half the people have welcome mats that say, you better have a warrant. But Daddy's sitting at the dining room table, boom, he was out. Mama called the EMTs, and they popped him about half a dozen times, brought him back. He lasted about 8 months until March of '94. It was absolutely one of the most stressful times of change in my life. And I found that 3 B's got me through that time. Books, barbells, and beer. Truly. Books helped me understand the situation, and also from reading fiction took me up and away from it. Barbells kept me physically stronger, and I felt like if I could physically deal with life, then I could deal with the rest of that stuff. And beer I used as an escape and for fun, and I have no problem saying that. If you do not have some sort of plan, a simple plan that allows you to deal with times of change, then the change becomes overwhelming. So don't leave it to luck. Thomas Jefferson said luck was when preparation meets opportunity. So what I'm trying to do is give you some things that allow you to prepare for it. On your outline, jump down here with me to number 3. The key to understanding change is understanding what is called the dip. Now, if you will, somewhere on your notes, I need you to draw this dip. Just draw it very similar to that, because you're going to need to write a couple of things on it in a second. Now, this phrase that's under number 3 there, I don't know what it is about that phrase about leaning into the dip, but for some reason that phrase has jumped all over these people at Novartis Pharmaceuticals. I get emails from them now, and they call me on the phone and say, our people are using this phrase to help them deal through times of change. They'll ask each other, are you leaning into the dip? So this may be a phrase that resonates with you, and if it does, take it and run with it and use it. Now, there are 3 times on this area of the dip that you need to be aware of. Right here at the little, where it swoops up, right at the very apex of that little first hill, I need you to draw an arrow and just put endings. Endings. When change comes about and you're looking at the dip, any kind of change, something in your life has ended as you know it. Can anybody just for a second tell me, what are some things that happen in your life that signify an ending? What are some of the major events in your life?
Got engaged.
I'm sorry?
I got engaged.
Got engaged. Okay. Thank you for saying that. I'm getting ready to put you on the spot. when you got engaged, what ended?
My bachelor.
Yeah. Thank you. I had somebody say that one time and I asked him what ended and he said, life as I know it.
It's not a bad thing, but it's a significant change.
Well, now this is a blunt question. Is this beautiful woman next to you the person? Congratulations. Way to go. I like that. Now, this is endings. You've got to start asking yourself, what has ended? Because at that time of ending, whether you know it or not, you may go through some of those grief process things. That sense of loss. I'll tell you what happens to a lot of people. They get to that high point, look down in the dip and think, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. I know what it's like back behind, and I want to kind of come back here the way it was. All right, now, draw an arrow down here at the very bottom of the curve, if you will, and write dreaded middle. Dreaded middle. This is the point at which you can't go back and you don't want to go forward. And it's almost like standing in a pond and you got a foot and two canoes. But you've got to kind of keep moving. But this is the time, I think, in which you really have to have a plan that keeps you moving. Now, if you will, just pick any point up towards the top of your dip and write the phrase new beginnings. New beginnings. Now, do me one last favor. I need for you to draw a dotted line from the top of that little hill straight across. Just draw a dotted line from the top of the hill straight across. If you notice, your new beginnings is higher than that dotted line. So when you get to the new beginnings, that change has allowed you, I think, to be at a bigger point in your life. Maybe not financially, but at least in terms of experience, what you're able to deal with in terms of life. So the whole deal is to keep moving through those different times. And when you get to that new beginning, find some way to celebrate it. But this issue of the dip, and if you understand it and you understand where you are in it, it allows you to move through it. Now, speaking of move, if you will, move on with me to the second page on your outline. Why do people resist change? I mean, folks will resist change even if it's something that would be good for them. The main reason people resist change is simple fear. Now, I'm sure that everybody in this room has heard the acronym that fear stands for future events appearing real. And that's what makes people worry. But why don't people move ahead into even sometimes those things that would be good for them? Let me give you 5 reasons why people don't move ahead. First reason is lack of control. Everybody wants to be able to believe that they are in control of their life. So if they believe that this change has created a lack of control, they tend to resist it and they're scared of it. Second, people are overwhelmed. They're just overwhelmed. Too much stuff coming at them at one time. Yesterday we did a little exercise, if you remember, where I asked you to take your finger, touch it to the back of your head, and I said 4 inches in from where your finger is an area where your reticular activation sits. It's called the amygdala. Do me this favor. Hold your finger up like that. Put it above your right eye. Okay. About 3 inches in from there is a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's a part of your brain that's kind of like RAM in a computer, operates real fast. My prefrontal cortex right now is taking in y'all, and it's thinking about what I'm going to say next. But it also gets tired real fast. And when it gets tired, it defaults to that part of your brain you thought of yesterday. And that part of your brain is all about habits. All about habits. So when you're overwhelmed by this change, your attitude is, I'm just going to do it like I did before. That's jumping from prefrontal cortex to the other part of your brain. So it's easy to get overwhelmed. Third reason that people fear and resist change is they don't want to be embarrassed. Adults do not want to be embarrassed. Children don't mind it. Adults don't want to be embarrassed, and if they believe this change is going to embarrass them, they won't hang with it. Fourth is they just think it's wrong. And it could be they believe it's morally wrong or ethically wrong, or how many of you have ever run into this? We tried that 2 years ago, didn't work then, won't work now. That they just think that change is wrong. And the final one is one of my favorite ones. The final one is they think it's the flavor of the month. Flavor of the month. Yeah, Mike went to one of them seminars and they told him to do this, this, and this, and he's back here telling us to do that, that, and that. But you know, he went to that seminar last year, came in here with all these big ideas. And he'll go to a seminar next year and come back with something else. So this is just the flavor of the month. All we got to do is hang tough. He'll forget it and we can move on. Now, one of the reasons people resist, and it encompasses all these 5 things, has to do with who they are. Please note these numbers down here. 20% of any organization I hate to say it, but 20% of this group in here tend to be relatively optimistic people. They're the kind of folks that when tough things happen, they're able to kind of move through and make, you know, the whole adage of when you give people lemons, they'll make lemonade. Okay, that's who those people are. You give me lemons, I want to know where the tequila is. 60% of any group tends to be neutral. They can go either way. And they can go either way based on anything from the weather to what song they heard on the way to work to if they got too tight underwear. I mean, anything can make them sway either way. The final 20% are negative people. They are negative, pessimistic people. Be sure to be careful about them in times of change. They are like a virus, and they will make other people negative too. Now, this 1667-17, the largest study ever done in the American workplace was done by the Gallup organization. Same people who do Gallup polls during election time. They came up with a study that said 3 million workers, 80,000 managers. Here's what they found. 16% of the American workforce tends to be engaged. They're into it every day when they get into work. 67% is disengaged. Maybe they give you a day's work for a day's pay, maybe they don't. But here's the ones you need to worry about. 17% of the workforce is actively disengaged. That means they are people who spend more time trying to get out of the work than they do actually doing the work. If you are identifying people like that in times of change, they are usually the people who will cause you the most problems. And they won't be overt problems. They'll just kind of hang back and keep kind of doing their little bit, waiting for this to pass. You've got to be careful about these people in times of change. Now, in basic reasons about why people do or do not change, it comes down to these two phrases right here. When we were talking about the boombox in your head, that's homeostasis. Homeostasis is a sense of equilibrium. Everybody seeks a sense of equilibrium. Let's just keep things like they are. We don't like to change. But here's the other one I kind of like. And I hate to even say I like it, and I'll tell you why. This phrase, the constructal theory, I never like to say anything good about anybody from Duke. But there's a professor at Duke University named Adrian Bejan, and it's B-E-J-A-N. Bejan is literally one of the smartest people on the planet. He is in a list of 100 scientists whose work is cited by more scientists than anybody else in the world. He came up with this constructal theory, and what it is it's the theory, the path of least resistance. He has come up with the scientific basis to the path of least resistance. Most people, I'll give you a great example. If I ask this gentleman over here in the green shirt on the far corner, if I ask him to come over here and shake my hand, I'm willing to bet what he's going to do is walk around this corner right here and come up and shake my hand. He's not going to jump from table to table and come shake my hand. He's going to take the path of least resistance. Human beings take the path of least resistance based on what goes on in their head and based on what goes on in their body. Don't fault the people who resist change. They're doing something that is very natural. What you've got to do is show them some positive ways to come along with you. So let's talk about that. If you're going to help folks, number 5 on your outline, you got to start asking yourself, this stress that's caused by change, how can we deal with it? There are only 3 rules to stress management. Here they are. Number 1, what are you going to have to accept? In the change, this stuff right here is going to be like this. You remember me talking about yesterday at the end of my program, and I said that when my doctor told me to stop worrying about weight and start worrying about height, and I said I'd love to be 6'3", but there's nothing I can do about that. I have to accept that. In this change, what do you have to accept? That this part's going to be like this. The second A is alter. Alter. What can you change? What do you have the power to change? Don't worry about a lot of stuff you don't have the power to change. Now this third one is one I really like, and the older I get, I'll be 59 next month, the older I get, the more I'm using it. The third A is avoid. What are some of the things you can just avoid? I've got a friend who says he's looking at life like a bullfighter now. He says there are some things that come along, he says I'm just going to olay them. And then I'll get back on the path and keep moving. So accept, alter, and avoid. Now, let me slow down for a second. In those stressful times, one of the best things you can do is find rituals that get you through that difficult time. Let me talk about for a second the importance of rituals. I have run into some people and I would ask them, what do you do when stressful situations happen or you run into a negative person? How do you deal with that sort of thing? I had one guy who told me he drinks a glass of water in 50 sips. He said, thinking about the water, thinking about the counting, he said that negativity tends to move away. I've had people tell me they'll listen to a song. How many of you have a song that gives you energy, that makes you feel positive? How many of you have more than one song like that? You're crazy if you don't go get somebody to make you a CD with about 10 of those songs, and during really stressful times, at the end of the day, you put that CD into your car or truck and listen to it, and it elevates your mood. That's pure neuroscience at work right there. I had one person who told me they sing a song, one who takes a walk. My favorite, though, were two women in Greensboro. And one woman said, she said, when I run into that stress during times of change, she said, if I run into a negative person, she said, I go to the bathroom and I wash my hands. She said, I'm literally and figuratively washing my hands of that person and of that situation. And I'm thinking that's kind of cool because that's kind of got this metaphysical kind of feel about it. But the woman next to her said, oh yeah, she said, I go to the bathroom too. She said, I tear off a piece of toilet paper and I write their name down on the piece of toilet paper. And I'm kind of worrying where this whole thing's going. And then she said, and then I flush it down the command. I'm thinking, thank you, Jesus. Okay, let's move right along. But if you've got rituals, and remember what I said about having a plan? If you've got rituals, then those times that are stressful, you're able to move through those times and do it in a positive way. Now, this next point, number 6, about stress, worry, and training. You have got to find a way to continue to train yourself and your people so that you can move through times of change. There are 4 areas of change and stress that you really need to be aware of. One is time. A second one is worry. And if you want to put the word anticipation, do that. What are you worried about? And that goes back to that future events appearing real. Let me show you something. When people worry, there are 4 things that are going on. 50% of the things you worry about will never come true. 32% of the things you worry about are things that have happened in the past and there's nothing you can do about them. That's 32%. 12% of the things you worry about are physical things that won't come true. My ex-wife told me I was the world's worst hypochondriac. I get a headache, think I got a brain tumor. 6% of what you worry about is physical. Is something that you can never do anything about. What if a meteor really would hit the earth? So what I'm going to ask you to think about is the vast majority of the things that you worry about are not going to come true at all. So the next point down here in the number 6 are situations. What is it about the situation that's stressed? Is it that you don't know how it might go? What is worried about you? And then people you come in contact with. Continue to train yourself and your folks to deal with these 4 things right here. And you'll be better able to move through change in a positive way. I've got a friend who's a minister, and he says that there are some sermons that we all need to hear every year, once a year, to remind us of certain values and certain ways of life that should be important to us. I believe there are 4 sermons everybody needs to hear once a year related to your work life. One is time management. Everybody in this room needs to go to a time management program once a year. And don't give me that stuff of, yeah, I went to one a couple of years ago. Go to one every year. It will reinforce some of those ideas and concepts that you need to be, and it's easy to kind of stray from doing a to-do list. Go to a time management program once a year. Go to a stress management program once a year. There's some wonderful research in neuroscience that's new stuff that talks about how you can better deal with stress. Third, go to a customer service program once a year. It'll help you better understand how to deal not only with those external customers, but also the internal customers with which you work. And fourth, go to something once a year that relates to success. I am willing to bet that your idea of success has changed since you were 17. Now, I'm going to give you a little different spin here. A lot of y'all are dutifully writing down the word success. To the right-hand side of that word success, I want you to put a backslash. On the right-hand side of that backslash, I want you to write the word selling. S-E-L-L-I-N-G. Selling. Selling is all about persuasion. Now, no matter what you do in your organization, every now and then you need to go to a selling program. I can put y'all in a room where everybody around you is either selling houses or cars, and you'll hear so much that relates to what you do for a living, you have no idea. Selling is all about persuasion. Your lovely bride, did you have to persuade her? Okay. Did you have to do any persuasion? Look, right here. Mr. Hollywood's over here is going, no, I had her from day one. No problem right there. I got that good. All right, what I'm going to suggest to you is this. If you're going to move through change in a positive way, you are going to have to persuade people to come along with you. And that is all about selling. So continue to train yourself and your folks. Training keeps people in a more positive frame of mind. It keeps them growing. And that helps them move through change. Now, remember I told you there are 3 to 5 things you got to get. Come on to number 7 with me on this outline. Let's talk about what people really want to know. There are 7 questions that go on in your head and go on in the head of anybody who's going through change. The more you can address these 7 questions, the more effective leader you'll be, and the more you can kind of head off at the pass some of the problems. First, people want to know, what's the change? What's the change? The second thing, what are we doing right? By telling people what they do right, you have helped save their self-esteem, and you've showed them that not everything they're doing is wrong. If you are running through change, ask yourself, what am I doing right? What are my strengths? What are my wins? What isn't working, and what are the consequences of continuing? In other words, what do we need to change? But if we keep doing it like this, what happens? What are the benefits of changing? What's the good stuff we get if we change? This is my favorite one. What does done look like? If you can tell people what done looks like, a lot of times people will give you 110%. Because if they can see the goal, they'll kind of give it a second effort to get to the goal. Can you tell people what done looks like? Then what's the plan? Now do me a favor if you will. I just noticed I did not have a little PowerPoint thing. The one in between the done and plan, write the word obstacles. What are the obstacles that we're going to run into? If you can tell people those 7 things, then you have an opportunity to help them move through change in a positive way and help yourself move through change in a positive way. Now I just used the word positive, so come on down here to number 8 with me. The first thing you've got to do is you be positive. How can you build a positive workplace? Positive workplaces have a better chance of moving through times of change than negative workplaces. So the first thing you've got to do is catch people doing things right. Go into work every day and catch somebody doing something right. If you will do that, you will tend to create an attitude of gratitude in your workplace. And I'm going to tell you something that's crucially important in times of change. In negative workplaces, information has to go through so many filters before people actually get it. In positive workplaces, the velocity of information is faster and things come through more clearly. So the more you can create a positive workplace, better off you're going to be. If you're going to make a positive workplace and especially reward people, you need to think about the platinum rule as far as the rewards. Now, Willie mentioned this yesterday about the platinum rule. Everybody in here knows the golden rule, right? Do unto others, you would have them do unto you. Everybody with me on that? Okay. The platinum rule says, do unto others the way they would have it be done to them. Do unto others the way they would have it be done to them. That is truly how people want us to act towards them. Because maybe you don't want what I want. And if I can figure out what you want, give you what you want, then we got a better chance of creating a positive relationship. So the platinum rule, the more you can find out what other people want, the better off you are. Now this next point is something that so many people in this room are going to find comfortable. And by comfortable I mean, how many engineers do we have in here? Okay. Number 10, when you look at the next 36 months, I want you to reverse engineer it. Reverse engineer it. One of the great things about Willie Stewart's outline yesterday, if you remember, he had that bullseye looking thing and he had the goal in the very middle, and then he came out and like what was 1 month from that, and then a year from that, 3 years and 10 years. All right, you need to reverse engineer things. Where do you want to go? What's the bullseye? And then start backing up until you figure out, what do I do tomorrow such that if I keep doing those things, I get to where I want to go. So do this for me if you will. You remember the graph that I had you do at the very start of my program? I need for you to draw another graph, please, if you don't mind. It won't take you but a second. In the lower left-hand corner of the graph, I need you to put the number 11. On the far end of that line that's horizontal, I want you to put the number 16. How do you see change in your life and in your organization for the next 5 years? What do you see coming? Take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. My friend Ellis McCullough and I were talking about yesterday about the next 10 years, and we were talking about, what comes up for the next decade? What do we want to try to accomplish? And how can you make sure that that sort of thing happens? So, all right, now, the graph that some of you have, are you seeing the Andes again? How many of you seen the airplane again? Okay. That should tell you that what you need is a simple plan that helps you move through change. You need to address some of these questions that I gave you. And you need to start thinking ahead and asking yourself how you're going to take care of yourself in these times of change. So let me give you a way to do that. If you will, turn your page, please. The reason that I have not put blanks on this last page and that I have written it in real big letters is I would love to know that you would take this back to where you work, print it out, and put it up on the wall. Please feel free. First off, if you're going to move through change, you have got to accept what you cannot change. You got to lean into the dip. I especially like this second one. Cowboy up. Cowboy up. Understand what your reality is and step into it. Get it done and move on. Third, can you try and deal with one problem at a time? I know you got a bunch of stuff going on all at the same time, but the more you can focus on individual problems and get them done as much as you can and move on, you'll be more effective. Be flexible. Everything isn't A or B. Everything isn't black or white. Be flexible. Don't hold your worries inside, but don't spill on people. If you have a friend who you can call and you can kind of say, man, I can't believe I've had one of these days. Tell them to give you a 3-minute limit. Say, listen, Pamela, excuse my language here. Call them and say, look, I need to bitch about something. I'm going to do it for 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, call time on me, and I'll get back to a positive frame of mind. If you've got somebody like that, I think that's a good thing. Work off the stress. How many of you exercise on a regular basis? Good deal. I don't think you have to be running sprints or marathons or whatever. I will say, though, you better be doing something to take care of yourself and the rest of your time in South Carolina. Thank you. Thank you.